Hey guys, welcome. Today we're going to be working on this super cool animated noise in Unreal Engine 4. We're going to jump into After Effects to build our packed texture. Then we're going to jump back in Unreal, make it all nice and customizable, and it's going to be great. Let's go. Okay, so here we are in After Effects. Before we start, we should make sure that we're working in linear space. So go in here, set it up to be 32 bits per channel, sRGB, linearize the working space. Right. Let's make a new composition, call it turbulent noise. Set it up to be 1024 by 1024. Let's make a solid. Same dimensions, naming doesn't actually matter. Go into effect controls. If you don't have this, you can go into window effect controls. And I turn it off. Right, so here's where the magic happens. Let's make a turbulent noise. Set it up to be dynamic progressive and then invert it. This gives us this kind of nice caustics effect once you bump up the contrast. Let's go ahead into the subsettings, tweak it a little bit so that it looks a bit nicer. There you go. One very important part about this is that we want our textures to have as much range as possible. So if you look at the little info box in here, as I scrub through the pixels, you can see various values. What we want is our texture to have as close bright values to 1 as possible, and then the same for the dark ones. So our white pixels should be very close to 1, so 0.92, it's pretty good. And then our dark pixels want to be close to 0, so 0.05. Yeah, that's pretty good. We can further increase the contrast a little bit. Let's tweak it. Let's change the scaling a little bit. Just kind of mess around with it to get the desired look that we're going for. Right, that looks pretty good. Another important point is that we really don't want kind of holes of black similar to over here, because you're gonna end up with holes in the animated noise. So let's tweak the contrast a little bit more. Let's pull it down a little bit. We can increase the brightness to get rid of those nasty holes. Yeah, something like this. Another way to tweak it is to add in curves. That gives you a little bit more kind of artistic control to change the texture. So let's double check again that we are in range. So these are going a little bit above 1, but that's okay. We just need to make sure that there's no negative values anywhere. Right, yeah, that looks about right. So another important difference between doing noise in After Effects and something like, I don't know, Photoshop clouds, for example, is that by default, After Effects noise does not tile, which is kind of bad for our purposes. Let me show you. In Distort, if we apply an offset and then we just tweak it, and there it is, this horrible seam that we do not want. So what we can do to combat that is to add in a CC Reptile. So if you go into Stylize and grab a CC Reptile effect, this will let us kind of blend the edges a little bit better. Right, I'm going to set it up so that it's on repeat. Let's push the blend borders and you can kind of see what's going on there. And then I'd like to set up the expand to 1024 by 1024. Let's move the offset up. There you go. So we have now made a kind of cross-fading border effect. Now, usually this would be an issue because you can kind of tell that this bit is obviously very easily just mirrored. However, because we're going to be multiplying our textures a lot, most of the time it's not really an issue. Another thing we can do to change this is to move the curves just so that it kind of affects the border a little bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Double check. Yep, that's all good. Right, one final tweak to get our noise kind of super cool looking. I would like to add in a blur, a CC vector blur. Now what this does, and there we go, you can kind of see it, it a little bit sharpens kind of our edges to give us that awesome energy tendril look. Cool. So let's move this offset and double check that we are all good. Yeah, looks like it. So I will turn off this offset for now. And this is our texture. I'm a bit worried about these black holes. Let's push this up to 5 just to make sure. Another thing we can do is slightly tweak the evolution. And we're going to be doing that anyway later on. Right. So what I want to do next is animate the evolution. Like so. Let's set it up so that it does, I don't know, 3. Basically we want to have the noise be slightly different every frame. You can press numpad 0 to kind of quickly preview your work. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Cool. Well, it kind of looks like caustics actually. Right, so what we want to do to build our packed texture is to do a new composition and just call it texture underscore packed. We're gonna make 4 different versions of this noise effect. So if you do Control D to duplicate, and we're gonna, because we've animated, we now can slightly change these over time, and then we'll get 4 different versions of our noise. Now what I want to do is get a new solid and then set its channels to the channels of our 4 different noises. So if you go into channel, set channels, and then just pick your noises. So that one, yeah, you can kind of see it here. Let's pick the 4th one, pick the 5th one. I want to hide the ones underneath. And then I can go ahead and change these to luminance because our noise doesn't really have any color information. There we go. Cool. So now we have our packed tiling caustics noise. Can click here to double check that your transparency works. And yeah, let's double check that it's tiling. So if we go into again distort, offset, let's offset it. Yeah, you can kind of notice it here, but yeah, it's gonna be good. Let's reset this, and now all we need to do is export this into a texture and put it into Unreal. I'll go into the render queue. I'm gonna set it up so that it's full, and then I can do Control-Alt-S to save the first frame of this composition. If it loads, please load. Yeah, there we go. So I'm gonna save the first frame of this composition. I'm gonna save it as OpenEXR. I quite like that format. Let's resize it. I'm gonna make it into 512 by 512 because it's a tiling noise. We don't really need that much resolution quality. Cool. Right. go in here. I've already made one before, but I'm gonna go ahead and delete it. And I'm gonna call it texture pack tiling noise. Cool. Right. Yep. And render. Sweet. Okay. Jump into Unreal. Let's get rid of our old example. Start from scratch. Make a new material. Call it animated noise. Let's bring in our texture. There we go. I'm gonna notice that it is now an HDR texture because we exported as an EXR. This also plays into the reason why we made it relatively small resolution. HDR textures tend to be quite memory intensive. Let's keep it like this. Close this up. Let's go into the material. This is where the magic's gonna happen. Set it up to be a simple material. Get a noise. Cool. Okay, let's get a texture object. Even better, a texture object parameter. Call it pack noise. We do this just so we know that all our textures are coming from the same place. Plug it into the texture. Basically what we want to do is get a bunch of panners and give them different speeds and rotations so that we create the illusion of animation without actually having to pay for it, or at least not as much. So let's make a panner. Hold P and left click. Let's make a texture coordinate, U and left click. Cool. Plug that into the coordinate. Let's get a time node and give it a basic speed. Cool. Plug that into the UVs and we have a basic panner. Cool. Right, so what we want to do is start giving this panner some better values. Let's make a 2 value. Give it some prime numbers. So I've gone ahead, written down a few values. Let's go here for a 0.113 and minus 0.19. Plug that into the speed. There we go. We use prime values in order to avoid having our noise overlap with itself. It makes it less likely that that would happen. Okay, what we want to do next is try and add in more variation into our texture. Let's make another panner. Let's make another texture sample. Feed the texture into the same place. Basically, we're gonna get another panner doing the same behavior, but it's gonna offset the UVs of the other panner. I know it's a little bit confusing, but you'll see what I mean. Let's get the same values from here. Plug the texture coordinate. Let's get our panner here. So coordinate, time. Let's give it a different speed this time though. Okay, let's go with minus 0.149 and 0.257. There we go. Give it a speed. Plug the panner into the UVs. Right. Now we're gonna get the values from the red and green here to add to the values of this texture coordinate. Let's make an append. Get the red and green value. There we go. And now we're gonna add this to our other coordinate. So hold A and left click to do an add. Plug this into here. And there you go. Get this kind of nice overlapping noise. Of course, we want to have control over this. So let's do a multiply. move this a bit out of the way. Do a multiply. Add a scalar parameter so that we can control it. Call it UV distort. Give it a default value of 1. Right. So this way we have direct control in our material instance to be able to affect the distortion. Let's slightly rearrange these. Okay. There we go. Another thing we want to do is get our time to be able to scale through a controller. So if we do a time speed variable, this way we can create a parameter that controls the speed of our panning. Give it a scalar, call it speed multiplier, value 1, and instead of just time, we're doing our custom time. Okay, do it for the other one as well. Let's remove this one. Feed the time. I'm gonna go ahead and rename our parameter to be the same as the other ones, just to avoid having a lot of connections overlapping with each other. It kind of makes the material look a little bit nicer. Cool. So if I apply this just to save, let's multiply by a color just so we can see what we're doing, and then we can jump into our material instance and see if our controls work. Multiply by a color. Plug it into the emissive. Yeah, that looks like something. A little bit trippy. Let's use the red channel here. Cool. Let's go back to our example. Make an instance. And see if our controls work. So let's see. UV distort. Yep. So you see what's going on here. Go back to 1 and let's do the speed. There we go. Yeah. So basically we're gonna do this 4 times. And we're gonna get the different values and the different channels to kind of multiply with each other in order to create that animated noise. Let's move this back. Too much back. Cool. And let's copy it again. Aside from this one can stay. Excellent. Let's take this. Copy, paste. It's a little bit annoying that you constantly have to rename things in order to keep everything tidy, but it's better than having connectors everywhere. Cool. Let's also go ahead and change these prime numbers. Give it some other values. So here, let's go with 0.173 and let's go with 0.223. Cool. This one, maybe 0.29 and minus 0.13. Let's see here. Get another texture sample. Make sure it's connected to the right texture. Cool. There we go. So we have this one going kind of to the left. Now if we do a multiply between these two, take the red channel from this one, the green channel from this one, and we will get sort of the effect we're going for. Plug this into here. There you go. You'll notice that multiplying both the gradients makes it darker, because essentially you're taking a fraction, multiplying it by another fraction, and you're getting, you know, smaller fractions. So we'll need a controller to kind of bump those numbers up. Cool. Let's do 2 controllers. Do a scalar, call it noise contrast, and another one, call it brightness. Set the default settings to 1 so that nothing disappears. Now we want to do a power node for our contrast. Plug the multiply into here. Then we want to multiply our result of the contrast into the with the brightness. There we go. Apply it. Let's see what we got. There we go. So we are getting somewhere here. Let's see if our settings work. Yep. Although you can still notice there is 2 panning noises. So this is why we put in the contrast to kind of give it a bit more variation. Let's go with this one. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. We can go another step beyond. Take this entire behavior, replicate it again, and get all of the channels to do all of the things. It's gonna be wonderful. Let's take this. Yeah, all of our values. Paste them. Here's another reason why renaming these so that they all have the matching names is helpful. Otherwise we would have connections going from here to somewhere, then from there to there. It's gonna be crazy. Let's fix this one. Fix this one. And again, same procedure. Give it some different numbers, some different prime numbers. So minus 257. And I don't know, minus 113. This one, let's go with 0.17 with minus 0.23. Cool. Let's take our, yeah, you can see this one having to be dragged over here. It's messy. But this one is important because all our texture samples need to be connected to a single texture in order to kind of keep the cost down. Even though I have all these texture samplers here in our settings, it says we have 3. So basically these are instances of our texture samplers. Cool. Everything's nice and clean, nice and neat. Let's multiply. Take the blue channel from this one, alpha channel from this one. There we go. And now its final form. Take this one, multiply it again. We are multiplying a lot of numbers. Push it here. Oh, it's freezing. Oh, don't freeze on me. You can do it, Unreal. You can do it. I believe in you. There we go. Let's hit apply. Now we need to push the brightness further. See what we're doing. Yeah, That's looking pretty good. I can kind of change it a little bit more. Can do a few more touches to this. Add a little bit more randomization. Let's take over here our alpha channel. Append it with the green channel. This one we can do blue and red. This one we can do blue and green. Yep. So we are multiplying. Let's hit apply. Save it. See what we got. Yes, I like this. So because we're distorting, it kind of works a little bit better than the regular. Let's turn it off. It works better than the regular four-way chaos. It gives it a little bit more random directions, and the pixels are going in various places. Let's push this down to 0.5. Yeah. So we can do one more thing to give ourselves ultimate control. Take our texture coordinate and let's give it some UV multipliers. So make a scalar, call it U. Oh, that's not U, that's something different. U. Set it to 1. Let's do V. Oh, come on. There we go. Append them. And then multiply it by the texture coordinate. Cool. Now we just need to do this for all of them. Simple. Super easy. I'll just kind of go for it here. And there we go. Here is our super cool tiling. Super tiling? Yeah, looks like it. Here is our noise. One texture, a bunch of math, not too many instructions, and kind of spaghetti. But it works. Hope you enjoy it.